What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS NFL Podcast. I'm Katie Mox here with Sportsline's finest RJ White and the Brinstigator, Will Brinson. Today is our NFL Week 1 way too early betting lines show. You like that, Brinstigator? All right, make sure you keep it locked with us all week long for more offseason news. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube page. And if you're listening to audio only, do the same. Download, follow, leave a 5-star review, and tell your friends to listen and watch the pod. RJ, lines are out. How excited are we to start betting on football?
Yeah, very excited. I mean, there's value to be had. These lines are going to move a ton. It's not like a regular season game where you have 6 days to move the line, 7 days to move the line. These lines are going to be way different. But the problem is, of course, if you're betting with a limited bankroll, you have to lock up your money for 4 months before the games were played. So you have to kind of deter what you're going to do in that sense. But you're not going to get any better value than right now when the lines just come out.
Unless, like, Lamar Jackson is traded.
Whoa.
I'm just kidding.
You're putting that out into the universe, Brinson?
Well, no, I was really more like just sort of thinking about how, we thought that he might be traded at one point, and like that's how, it's all dependent on like certain situations, what could X happen with, but the point being is the only way you're going to get better value is if you jump on a line when some kind of injury or some kind of news happens over the next several months. And I mean, we're probably, knock on wood, no, we don't want anybody to get injured, but I mean, we're probably done on the news cycle, right? In terms of anybody big moving. Yeah, Rodgers, Lamar, we're good. I think we're good.
Yeah.
Are we going to have a drama-free June?
We'll see.
I don't know about that.
Antonio Brown says, I want to go play for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and then the world goes mad for 3 weeks. We'll see if that happens.
That's a good point.
We'll have an Antonio Brown filled June.
Let's get on these week ones.
But Dom in the chat said, are you going to have Matt Ryan on the show now that he's a part of CBS? Welcome to the network, Matt Ryan. And yes, we hope to have him on the Pick Six Podcast. But let's start with week one.
Let's clarify. Matt Ryan has been on this podcast multiple times. Before he was joined CBS, yeah. Friend of the podcast, technically, under the rules
Friend of the podcast,
as governed by
hope to have him on more.
Of course.
More. Okay, good. I didn't know that, but excited to have him on when I'm on with me. All right, let's look at week one spreads. Some of the tighter ones that are a field goal or lower. RJ, first looking at the Panthers at the Falcons. This line is 3 favoring Atlanta. Over under is 47. What's your early lean for this matchup?
Yeah, 3 here, 2.5 at a few other places. I think if this line's coming off the 3 at Caesars, it's going to be toward the Panthers, toward the underdog. My initial power spread rating has this line as Falcons -2. I think that would be appropriate for the regular season. So I think it might move toward the Panthers. I would go, if I'm going anywhere, I don't think it's a ton of value, but I would go the Panthers at this point. You look at the quarterback position, Panthers have the more talented quarterback. Atlanta has the more experienced quarterback, even if it's only by, a few games, however many he played. So I don't know. I think they're pretty even teams. I have them evenly rated. I give Atlanta 2 points for home field. So I think 2 is the right line.
By the way, RJ, you would be so proud of me what I did over the weekend. This is like I spent a large portion of my Saturday and Sunday creating an NFL schedule matrix. So on CBSSports.com right now, you can go and look, and I did projected records for every single team in the NFL, how I think they would finish. I went through and played their schedule out. But I actually created several formulas in this Excel thing. Like I didn't just type W or L and then add them up at the end. I had it actually count them in the formula and turn green or blue or green or red, or yellow for buy, but actually put it together. And it was very illuminating in the sense that, you kind of going through that game by game. And I know you like to do the same thing and you have your power ratings, but like, it just gives you a better feel overall for, where you stand on certain games. And I think I had Atlanta winning this one, but it was definitely a toss up. And you think back to what we've seen from the Panthers, with Matt Rule coaching or Steve Wilkes coaching, and they hung with Atlanta. They kept things pretty tight. You now have Frank Reich coaching. It was a massive, massive coaching upgrade. I think the Falcons are going to be really good. I had them winning 10 games and Carolina winning 8, but, coin flips here or there. I think the Falcons find a way to win this one, but I'm with you. If you're getting 3 points and you talk about the experience that Desmond Ridder has, I mean, Bryce Young, pretty experienced too, just in terms of playing football at a high level, granted not the NFL, but I trust this Carolina coaching staff to make life easy for him. I know he's not getting the first team reps, but let's be real here. If it's a massive, massive disappointment if he doesn't end up being the week 1 starter, I think he will be. And if you're giving me 3 in a divisional game with the total this low, I'm absolutely taking the points.
And even with the experience, we talk about the quarterbacks, maybe the offenses are even. I think the Carolina defense is ahead, even with the upgrades that Atlanta made. I like that Brinson's coming from my corner, though, with all this Excel work and schedule. I put my Excel spreadsheet.
Who is this man?
Thursday night, I have
model.
color coding for Thursday, Monday games to know where the short rest happens. Color coding for the London games, so like what's truly not an actual road or home game. And I analyzed all that and actually went team by team, gave about 300 words on every team where the positives and negatives for the schedule occur. When, if you like betting their futures, when's the time to do it, now or during the season at some point? So went game by game on Sportsline, put the AFC teams out Friday, NFC teams out today on Monday. So go check it out if you're a Sportsline subscriber.
And if you're not, you can sign up today. It's only $1 to sign up for Sportsline. So make sure you go ahead and do that. I can't wait as the season goes on for Brinson to refer back to his model and what his model is saying for these games. Moving on to the Battle of Ohio.
You know me
Fun
too
fact,
well. I mean, I'm totally going to do that all season long.
According to my model. Yeah.
Because I will do golf models, right? But if it's like Fantasy National, it's like, I'm plugging in stats and having it spit it out for me, but it's my model. This is really just me saying win or loss. And then, but like, if you read the article I wrote, Katie, like you're so spot on about this. Cause I was like, when I ran through my projections, it's really just like letting it, it's like if W, it's like add up the W's in this column, add up the L's, and there's my model. So yes, you have correctly identified my false hubris that shall be occurring throughout the season.
Well, I can't wait for it. Fun fact, RJ, I don't know if you know that Breach is basically an odds maker. We did a show right after the schedule was released, and he correctly guessed almost all of these. So we're looking at this Battle of Ohio. Bengals -2.5, over under 48. Breach somehow guessed 2.5, like right on the dot here. But how do you see this one playing out?
I think Breach is underselling the Bengals. I think you're giving this line either paints a very optimistic picture for the Browns, a team I have rated as dead average. I think it's fair to put them as a 0 in my power ratings and say they're a dead average team. Or this line doesn't credit the Bengals for being a top tier team. I think the Bengals are right there with the Chiefs and Bills in the AFC, obviously. And those are teams that I have, 7 points better than average, 6.5 points better than average, that in that realm. So even giving the Browns 2.5 points of home field advantage, I don't see why this number is where it is, while the market's willing to make like the Eagles, for example, 4.5 point favorites at New England. I don't know that New England and Cleveland are any different in terms of team strength, and the Bengals and Eagles, both top tier teams. So this line feels light to me. I think it moves toward the Bengals. I would be surprised if it doesn't close at least 3, but I think it should be higher.
One of the things about the Bengals the past couple of years, we go back and look, last year they lost 23-20 in overtime to the Steelers in week 1. In 2021, they won in overtime 27-24 against the Vikings. And then in 2020, they lost 13-16 to the Chargers. So you have the Cincinnati Bengals, 3 season openers in week 1. Two of those 3 games went to overtime. All 3 games decided by 3 points. And I think what's really interesting about this and Cincinnati is, to really dovetail into what RJ is saying too, the Bengals in 2020 had a rookie quarterback in Joe Burrow in completely unprecedented times. I mean, it's insane how far away 2020, August of 2020 feels like. We're like, will we have football? Maybe. Joe Burrow being a rookie in a pandemic. In 2021, Joe Burrow is coming off a torn ACL and trying to rehab and get ready for the start of the season. And in 2022, Joe Burrow had this burst appendix, which is not appendicitis, right? I mean, it was a burst appendix, major surgery. Could have gone, I think he went septic even potentially. Point being, if Joe Burrow maintains his current track of not having to deal with monster issue at the start of the season, I think we could look at Cincinnati as the team that RJ is sort of painting the picture of, where this is an elite team. They lost some pieces on defense, but they really upgraded the offensive line in a big way. They have these young receivers who we treat as superstars, but are still, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are not like veteran receivers. They're coming into their own. Like Jamar Chase is in his 3rd year. I mean, he could go off for 2,000 yards. Nothing would surprise me. I had the Bengals actually winning their first 6 games before dropping one at San Francisco out of the bye in my model. And then I have the Browns as really more like a 7-win team. I think Cincinnati could roll them by 15 or 20 points in this game.
RJ, what do you think about this total? Oh, sorry. You want to?
I was going to say the moral of the story is go take the Bengals -2.5, great bet, and then go get Joe Burrow in bubble wrap. Maybe run, the intersections around his house, do some like traffic guard stuff. Just make sure that no injury comes to that man because we need him healthy for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your take on the total at 48? Bengals went 7-11-1 on the over last year. Browns 8-8-1, but of course they had a different quarterback throughout their campaign. How do you feel about this 48?
Yeah, they had a better quarterback for a lot of their campaign because that guy that came back in week 12 did not look good, not look as good as backup for some of the points. So we'll see if you'd like to say better in year 2, full off season to prepare, whatever. Well, he was able to prepare, for that season. He just did not play well. The thing about totals in week 1, teams typically they're not playing their starters throughout the preseason, so they tend to be a little bit rusty. Things aren't rolling. So I like to look at unders anyway. This Browns team, I'm not sure they're going to score a ton of points in this game. So 48 seems like a high total to me. I think it comes down to that 45 range. So my lean on that would be the under.
It'll be interesting to see what the team total for the Browns looks like in that opening game. All right, next up, we're going to look at the Dolphins versus the Chargers. Tua versus Herbie fully loaded, hopefully. This also under field goal, 2.5 favoring LA, and higher total at 50, RJ?
Yeah, 2.5 across the board. My power ratings, I give the Dolphins a little more credit than I think the market. I have this at Chargers -1, so I would lean this toward the Dolphins. I think it's questionable whether it does move toward the Dolphins. Everybody has 2.5 right now. When you see a 2.5, your gut reaction is to bet the 2.5 and think it's going to land 3. So take the Chargers, but I just think the Dolphins are better than they're being given credit for. If the market is confident in Tua's health, I think there'll be a move to get this line closer to pick him. And Miami added Jalen Ramsey, and the big one is Vic Fangio to me. He's going to turn that defense pretty good. I've talked about in this podcast in the past, and I need to take a big step forward and really make the Dolphins a contender in the AFC East race with the Bills that nobody's talking about because of the Aaron Rodgers trade. So we'll see what happens there. The Chargers also upgraded a problematic coordinator position by bringing in Kellen Moore, and so maybe they'll stop taking shots at the OC position from Will Brinson and me and everyone every week. So maybe that'll help too. And maybe Justin Herbert has a developmental jump. But the play here is obviously going to be to monitor Tua reports, make sure he's healthy. And then if everything's confirmed, he's good to go. I think the line moves toward the Dolphins. You want to be ahead of that move.
Yeah, I would probably echo that, especially with the Tua stuff. So like doing, predicting what Miami's going to do this season. And I wrote about it on the article. It's like, I mean, you can't. Like you can be as bullish as you want on the Dolphins. And there are a lot of people out there who are very bullish on them. I think that it was either, I want to say it was Mina Kimes of ESPN who was yelling about the offensive line is concerning because otherwise it's like this team is really good. And that's true. But if Tua suffers a concussion in week 1 because Joey Bosa like rips through the offensive line and knocks him to the ground, like how is he going to play within the next 6 weeks? Or like the rest of the season. I mean, he openly stated that he considered retirement this offseason. Now, whether or not that was like actually a thing that was gonna, like work down that pathway is a little bit different. But I mean, the Dolphins for the long haul are just scary and difficult to project. For the short haul, though, what RJ's saying, I agree with. It would be really, really unlikely if Tua suffers a concussion that prevents him from playing in week 1. That's a whole different ball of wax if he deals with a concussion in off-season training, mini camp, training camp, and then preseason. Like somebody's really screwed the pooch in that particular case. And then you would see the line move heavily towards the Chargers. But I think that's unlikely. I think it's much more likely to close as a pick 'em. We don't see the Chargers very often under Brandon Staley, I think, either come out just guns blazing and blow somebody out of the water in week 1.
This is very advantageous for the Dolphins too. Dolphins have to take a cross-country trip to Los Angeles. Put that in week 11. Very tough for them with that road trip. Put it in week 1. It's nothing. They're completely rested. So good for the schedule makers. Gave them a little bit of an edge here if you like in their win totals or futures betting. Just a small little thing that helps them out.
By the way, the Chargers with Herbert lost to the Bengals, as we noted, to beat the Bengals 16-13. Beat the Washington football team 20-16, 2021, and then in 2022, won against the Raiders 24-19. So 3-0 in one-score games in those 3 years with Brandon Staley and Justin Herbert. I definitely trust Herbert more than I trust Tua. I can't imagine anyone would feel differently. But like, it's totally possible that like you want the points here, I think, more so than you want to assume the Chargers just come out guns blazing.
Chargers have that consistent way to lose games that you think they're going to win. So even if they do look good for a half or three quarters, then you can see them losing this game by 1 or 2, or winning the game by 1 or 2, just barely if a field goal honks to the left or right.
About haunting me all weekend too was the fact that I forgot to include Kellen Moore revenge game, Cowboys Chargers, which is week 6 after the Chargers bye. So just a little mea culpa there. Didn't egged on that one.
RJ, how do you feel about first half bets? Because we talk about, Justin Herbert or the Chargers can lose things in the final minutes of the game. Do you look at the very first week and look at maybe like first half unders, or do you look at first half bets at all?
First half bets in general, I think you're really just looking at the coaches that aren't very good at making adjustments, or actually the ones that are, and the teams they're playing. So you want to get I think we saw, I believe last season, the Bengals just absolutely destroyed teams in the third quarter. And if they became known as a team that, like, no matter what the halftime score said, they were going to come out and play at their best after that. So those are teams that if you're not as confident in their spreads over the full game, maybe you fade them in the first half and then expect that them to come back at halftime, or vice versa, depending on how it looks. So it really just kind of depends on the situation, the coaches involved. I don't think there's a blanket thing you want to do for week 1.
Okay. Well, things have changed in the NFC North. The owner of the Bears, Aaron Rodgers, is no longer in Green Bay, and we see the Bears now favored -2.5 over the Packers. RJ, is the market kind of overvaluing the Bears here?
I think absolutely. I mean, their win total, I think, is 7.5. I mean, this was the worst team in the league last year, and they've made some good upgrades, but who knows what that defense is going to look like? Who knows what the offense is going to look like, especially on the offensive line, if they're going to be able to block for Justin Fields. And he did some good things last year, but he's not. I don't know that he has a Jalen Hurts type of level leap in him. He's going to be a good quarterback, great for fantasy, but we don't know if he's going to get to that top tier at some point. So I think this line is really telling you that Green Bay, Jordan Love is already busted, and they're a team that has a bust quarterback, is what the line's telling you. I think the range of outcomes for Jordan Love are a lot wider than that, and this line is building in, and actually their futures betting numbers are building into the expectation he's going to bust and he's not very good. And I would rather play the optimistic side of that and think we're getting value if that range of outcomes happens instead. So I think my power ratings have this at Bears -1.5. I could see everybody wanting to play the Bears and be at 3 because they're just dogging on the Packers without Aaron Rodgers. But my pick in this game is almost certainly going to be the Packers.
Yep. I think I actually had the Bears. Let me confirm. I had the Bears winning this game, but then losing like their next 4. And sometimes it's not like I definitely think they're going to beat Green Bay. I think this is going to be a close game, and I definitely side with RJ. One of the interesting things that happens psychologically when we come out of the draft and we head into week 1 lines, win totals, et cetera, is that people assign and ascribe sort of like a anecdotal value to NFL teams based on where they picked in the draft. And everyone is forgetting, because of when the trade happened, that the Bears were the worst team in football and that the Panthers were not. Like, people in their minds are like, oh, Carolina had the number 1 overall pick. Yeah. This team stinks. They've got a rookie quarterback, but it's very different than a normal first-year rookie quarterback situation. They were the 9th overall. They had the 9th overall pick. Not great, but I mean, what did the Panthers go, 7-10? Like, you're talking about
in
a
the
team
mix
that
to win the division.
Yeah, right.
They won the division.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, so that Panthers team that's picking 1 isn't as bad as a typical first place or number 1 overall team in the draft. And the Bears, who are picking at 9, are not nearly as good as a typical 9th overall team in the draft. This is a Bears team that stunk. Now, granted, they got gifted the number 1 overall pick, but they were waltzing to the number 2 pick. And the idea that Justin Fields is going to take this leap and to magically become a great passer, when we didn't really see that last year. He was awesome. He's an awesome athlete. He's an incredible, exhilarating player to watch. And I think he will keep the Bears competitive with his athletic skill set. But to suggest that he's just going to take this leap forward and become a really great passer, I think it is way more likely that Jordan Love becomes a good passer than it is that Justin Fields becomes a good passer in the year 2023. So give me the Packers for sure, even though I have the Bears winning the game as part of my larger Bears model.
Your power rankings?
Yes, essentially.
Power model. Yep. All right. Well, the Cowboys are laying 3 at the Giants. This total set to 47. Now, the Cowboys did win and cover this spread moreover in the 3 games last year versus the Giants. Giants have made some good upgrades. Where do you lean with this one, RJ?
Yeah, I think the market is probably going to keep this around where it is. I think the value is probably on the Giants for me. I think this line probably should be closer to a pick 'em. I think we're baking in too much regression from the Giants here and not enough regression from the Cowboys. They lost their offensive coordinator. We don't know what that offense is going to look like. It could be very conservative based on comments from Mike McCarthy. The defense played out of its mind. It might come back to earth just a little bit. So I think that there's potential for that too. The Giants get a lot of their players they want in place a lot more in year 2 with the new coaching staff. Wink Martindale getting to build that defense a little bit more better than into the vision that he's had. So I think these teams are closer to even than this one would imply. So I'll trust Brian Daboll and company do enough against Dan Quinn's defense to pull off the upset. Just straight up, I think this game is closer to 50-50, and you're getting pretty good value on the Giants at +3 and on the money line. I think at +135 doesn't state their possibility of winning this game.
I can't make heads or tails of this. Give me the Giants on the money line, +135. Really should be a little more robust than the +3. Like the Cowboys have a good run. I think did Breach say it's like 10 straight or something? Like Dak's beaten like the Giants. I think it was just like Dak has beaten the Giants like 10 straight or something crazy like that. And that's great. Jason Garrett had good success in the division. I am very intrigued by how this Cowboys offense is going to operate and what it's going to look like from the standpoint of Mike McCarthy has made public statements. We are going to run the damn ball in order to keep his defense fresh. And clearly flies right in the face of analytics. I do sort of wonder, like, all right, you cut Zeke. I still think Zeke's a decent chance to come back to Dallas. We'll see. Tony Pollard's coming off of injury, and the offensive line isn't what it once was, and you have Dak Prescott and all these weapons. So it's very bizarre to take that approach, especially when analytics tell us that, you throw the ball to get a lead, you run the ball to close it out. It is possible. I think there's definitely pathways where this offense works for Mike McCarthy because he's a seasoned veteran play caller. We've seen him have plenty of success in various places, San Francisco, and then of course Green Bay. His offense has been good in Dallas. I just sort of think there's a chance that this attempt to come out of the gates running the football aggressively maybe backfires, particularly in a matchup where you have a guy like Dexter Lawrence, you have Leonard Williams, you just have some really stout defensive players up front for the Giants. I think they'll be able to slow that down and kind of flip this game on its head. And the idea that Daniel Jones is going to regress in his second year with Brian Daboll, that is counterproductive. Like he's going to take a step forward, if anything. He's not going to suck just because he got paid. I'd love the Giants here.
All right. One more before we take a quick break. The Bills are 1-point road chalk at the Jets. Speaking of overvalued, I mean, what do we know that we're getting with the Jets? How do you think this line is going to change, RJ, or is this an accurate line? Are the Bills only a 1-point favorite?
Well, it opened at pick 'em at some places. It's already up to 1. I think at some places it's up to 1.5, maybe even 2. I think it just keeps climbing. I think this is similar to that Bengals-Browns game. The Jets are obviously going to be trusted more than the Browns with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. He wasn't the same Aaron Rodgers last year. And so I don't think you can just ascribe all those problems with Green Bay to not the quarterback's fault. The Jets are getting a guy past his prime here, might still have a good season. And then we saw what happened with Brett Favre. But who knows? I just don't think you can take for granted that the Jets are the 4th best team in the AFC and treat them like they should be head up with the Bills. So I think this line continues to grow. I'm not a fan of the other moves they made. They're rebuilding the Packers offense with Nathaniel Hackett, Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb. Wasn't very good last year, and Hackett wasn't there. But I don't know. A healthy Von Miller, I think, will get the chance to test the Jets' weakness at offensive tackle. And Rodgers might not even make it to week 2. So I think my power rating, my power ratings, I'm way too low on the Jets, but I think this line's closer to that 6 range for the Bills, and this line just doesn't make much sense at all to me.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks for RJ, but it makes me feel good that RJ and I are sort of sharing a brain, as Adam Shine likes to say on on some of these picks. If I'm RJ, I'm panicked and like thinking about changing my entire model and rewriting my power rankings because he and I are thinking the same thing. But when you look at Buffalo this year, they are the 2023 version of the 2022 Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody's out on them People are like, well, and I think you are too, Katie. You're like, how can I trust this team to take my money on these futures? I'm not saying you should go bet the Bills to win the Super Bowl. They have to go through the Chiefs. Like, just bet the Bills on the money line in the AFC Championship game instead of like tying up your money at 5-1 over the course of the entire season. It's just easier to do it that way. Everybody's like, all right, the Bills had their chances. It's done now. And that to me is kind of silly because you have Josh Allen, who's an elite quarterback. You have plenty of weapons. You have a coordinator in we're talking about second year, right? And Ken Dorsey, who's going to hopefully grow into the job the way that Brian Dable did. And you had some attrition just because of you win all these games, and that's just what happens in the NFL. Everybody's talking about the Jets. Everybody's talking about the Dolphins. People want to talk about the Patriots too. Nobody wants to talk about the Bills. They are wildly undervalued in the futures market for that division at plus money. And the fact that they're only -1 here against a Jets team that will be trying to figure things out. This is an easy opportunity to buy the Bills low right now while you can.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree that the Bills are undervalued. I'm not sure what
you don't have to disagree with me just to shake free.
Well, I just want to say I'm the eternal Bills pessimist, and I'm just don't want Brinson tied me to him in this segment.
Texas back
for 30 seconds. And I just want to state for the record that I am not optimistic on the Bills. I think the Dolphins might be an underdog to win the division that comes through. I just am very down on the Jets, and I don't think the Jets solved all their problems by trading for Aaron Rodgers like the market thinks that they have essentially.
I had the Jets going 10-7, and it could have been 9-8 pretty easily, honestly. Like, I don't think it's – you mentioned the week 2 thing. Like, dude, if Rodgers takes a massive hit playing in this and, the new – he knows the offense, but, behind a new offensive – there's just a lot of changing here for Aaron Rodgers. If he takes a huge hit early on – wouldn't feel comfortable if I'm a Jets.
Those Bills defenders are going to want to get after it too, because they're going to hear all offseason about Aaron Rodgers and how the Jets are going to win the division, and they're the pick everybody's backing, and he's going to get them to the Super Bowl, and they're going to be tired of hearing it by the time we get to September 10th or whatever the date is, and put a hurting on them.
All right, guys, we have to take a quick break here. Before we do, the Champions League on Paramount Plus is down to the final 4 teams and 2 epic semifinal matchups. Defending champs Real Madrid take on tournament favorite Manchester City in a rematch of last year's thrilling semifinal. Plus, it's a clash of Italian titans as Inter squares off against AC Milan in a battle for City bragging rights. Find out which clubs will reach the ultimate goal in soccer's greatest yearly competition. Stream every Champions League semifinal match live exclusively on Paramount Plus. Try it for free at ParamountPlus.com/live sports. You're watching Pick Six. We'll be right back.
Witness one of the world's biggest stars as a family man.
Really?
May 17th.
I just jumped into Stallone.
There's no place like Stallone.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
He's the last person that wanted to do this show yet. He sees the camera and he's like, am I in frame?
That's the truth.
The Family Stallone, streaming May 17th, exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back to the Pick Six podcast. If you're not following us on social, go do that right now at Pick Six Pod across all social media platforms. All right, fellas, we talked about some of the tighter spreads. Now let's look at some of the bigger ones. Obviously, we have the Lions at the Chiefs. The Chiefs laying a touchdown here, over under pretty high at 54. We do know that the Chiefs have a hard time covering. I mean, they don't have the best against the spread record, but how do you feel about them stacking up against the Lions, laying a full touchdown, RJ?
Well, this line is 6.5 at some place. So it looks like if it goes down toward anywhere, it should go down toward the Lions. I would make it on the other side of 7 and say Chiefs should be 7.5. And that's even with having the Lions as 1.5 points better than an average team right now. But a lot's going to depend on how that defense comes together after an awful 2022 season. They've made some draft picks. They've made some signings. We'll have to see if it works and if they're going to be competitive defensively because they were a train wreck for much of last year. And this isn't exactly an easy way to ease a defense that has questions marks into the season by playing Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So Andy Reid in situations where he has extra time to prepare. I'm not going to do the chant with Brinson, but pretty strong record. So and the narrative around the Lions' depleted receiving core following a number of gambling related suspensions is going to grow. And people are going to wonder who Jared Goff's going to throw the ball to in week 1 and whether they're going to be able to keep up with the Chiefs here. So we'll see if there's any Lions bounce buyback, if it gets off 7 direction, I think. But I think if you put it at 6.5 and some books are starting to put 6.5 out there, I want to be on the Chiefs at 6.5.
Yeah, the opener was 6.5, I think, too, because I had said I think it should be 10. And I realized it wasn't going to be 10. 10's up too many points. But, dude, this is the Detroit Lions who are being treated as, one, the favorite to win their division, two, a viable NFC championship team, all while ignoring the fact that they didn't even make the playoffs last year. And I realized that they played well at the end of the season and that they got things going. I love Dan Campbell. I love a lot of players in this team. Jameson Williams, you're going to miss him while he's suspended for the gambling stuff, which is, you could say is BS since he was gambling on college football, whatever. Lee McNeil's on that team, right? Like, there's a lot of dudes I really, really enjoy on Detroit. But this is look, you see this helmet over right here, the Cincy State helmet. This is like putting us in the Chick-fil-A kickoff game, okay? Because we have like finished strong the year before, and we've got a bunch of expectations, and we're a top 15 team in the country, and we're going to play Alabama. We're going to get smoked. Detroit is not ready for this setting. It is not a team that has the experience and to come in and just be ready to take on the freaking Chiefs with Andy Reid having the entire offseason to prepare. Remember what Andy Reid and Alex Smith did to Bill Belichick and the Patriots in New England in a season opener? Like, they don't care, man. They're going to obliterate the Lions in this game. And for me, the Lions season is really all about how do they respond to that obliteration, hosting Seattle and Atlanta at home and then at Green Bay. I think this gets ugly. I love the Chiefs, love them in teasers, love them in money line parlays. The question is how will Detroit respond is the biggest thing for me.
All right, Billy, trying to hurry us up here as he's already put the new game on the board there. So we're looking at the Cardinals at Commanders. Commanders laying 6, over under really low. The lowest on the board at 40. RJ, what's your take?
You can hurry us right along this one because nobody should be betting this game. No one should have any interest in this game. This is a terrible game. Commanders, my power ratings would make it 6.5, but I might be a little too high on the Commanders there. I don't see how you can make them a huge favorites considering they have Sam Howell at quarterback. A lot of question marks around that team. I know the Cardinals are bad, but this is week 1. Again, the cross-country trip, they got nice because they get to go cross-country coming off of a long off season rather than in the middle of the year. Colt McCoy had his time, assuming he's the quarterback here. And Kyler Murray's not going to play for a while. And I don't know. I just think that
Colt McCoy revenge game.
You don't want to take the Commanders at -6 against anyone, even the Cardinals, even at home. So my lean would be to the Cardinals, even though I would project the line a little bit higher.
Colt McCoy, by the way, with the Commanders from 2014 to 2019, or jumping on the Giants. Certainly a revenge game for Colt McCoy. I'm with RJ. Just don't bet on this game. Maybe take the under.
It feels like 16-13 either way. Or 16-12.
Like it's really hard to see a pathway where there's a ton of points being scored here. And it's interesting, Sam Howell, who maybe has a little Colt McCoy in him. I think some of the comps have been bandied about, but like just take the under. And if you have to make a pick in some kind of pick'ems league right now, well, one, you're a sick puppy for having that type of contest going on in your life, and then two, I'm taking the points of the Cardinals just because 6 is too many for so many things up in the air with both these teams.
I agree as well. Right, looking at Bucks at the Vikings. Vikings are 7-point home chalk, which seems in line considering they set an NFL all-time record for single possession wins last season. I believe that was at 12. That's 8 points or fewer. So now we have them right at a touchdown. What do you think, RJ?
Yeah, 7, but even odds on the 7, and then -120 on the +7 for Tampa Bay. Some places have 6.5 out. So if this line moves, it's going to move down and be in that 6.5 range, which I think is fair. I have this line projected at 7. So I think it's fine at 7. Buccaneers were a bad team last year. Now they're trading in the best quarterback of all time for a journeyman in Baker Mayfield on his 4th team less than a calendar year. I have them at 4 points below average, which is, pretty low on the Bucks. And even at that, I think 7 is the right line. So I don't think there's too much further down to go on the Bucks rating there. And who knows what we're going to get with Minnesota. So I think
RJ,
this is a pretty solid
you weren't
line.
inspired by Baker's comeback win with the Rams last season?
I was not. Anything can happen in the course of one game, and weird type of things happen like that. Great moment for him, but I don't think it precludes a huge second act in this league. But we'll see.
Brinson, you're a Baker believer, aren't you? A little bit.
Yeah, I'm a big Baker guy. I think actually our Slack channel is titled "I'm a Big Baker Guy," or at least was for a lengthy period of time. Yeah, I like Baker. I don't. This line is crazy, man. Like the Vikings played 11 one-score games last year. Was it 14 one-score games? 12 one-score games last year. They're due for regression. and they're getting 7. They're laying 7 points against a Buccaneers team that I think plenty of people are down on. I don't understand this line. I'm definitely taking the 7 with Baker and the Buccaneers, although I am not high on Tampa Bay at all this season. I think Tampa Bay is very live to get to steal the first overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, and that defense is for Minnesota just going to be better. I think that's the key thing for me is that these situations where they might have won in a blowouts, but it turned into a one-score game because they just couldn't stop anyone. With Brian Flores coordinating the defense, I don't think that happens as much. So I think they'll be able to maintain bigger leads in the second half, which they couldn't do because of their pass defense last year.
All right, moving on to two of the more talked about teams this offseason. The Texans, of course, had the splashiest draft. The Ravens re-signed Lamar Jackson. They picked up OBJ. They're 9.5-point home chalk here, over under 44.5. This is a big spread, RJ.
It is, but that's where my power ratings have it. The line was Ravens -9 on Thursday, and I wasn't sure it was going to get pushed up anymore with the buzz around the Texans, but then it went to 9.5, and that's where it is kind of across the board right now for the most part. So I think this looks like a clear under game for me with this Houston team, this Houston offense without Brandon Cooks, with a rookie quarterback in the fold. I don't know if they're going to score a ton on the road in Baltimore in the first week. So Lamar Jackson getting his legs back under him. Maybe they run up the score some, but against the DeMeco Ryans defense, I'm not going to count on that. So at 44.5, I'm probably going to lean to the under on this one.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me a little bit, we've seen the Ravens put up some points in week 1, man. Remember that was like 53-9 against the Dolphins a couple of years ago. That was 2019. Lamar's first season, in that Greg Roman offense. It was like a
4-year stretch where they outscored the opponents like 125 points.
It was outrageous.
It was something incredible. It was like 59-0, 44-12. Just these ridiculous finals.
That's my only real fear here with this line and this total is that you have Todd Monken, first-year offensive coordinator. You're going to be putting in some new, obviously a new offense, but we see what Georgia does, and they love shot plays. You got Odell Beckham that people, I ranted about how he's overhyped, and you got Lamar who just signed this big contract, and like people are down on the Ravens a little bit. They know their win total's up to 9.5 and just the over now. I think people are starting to come back around on them, but like I think Baltimore will want to make a statement here. And if you're going to make a statement, and I agree with you, DeMeco Ryans' defense is great, but if you're going to make a statement, Houston's a decent team to make a statement on. And that would be my one concern about taking the points, because I love Houston this year, or taking that under, which I agree with you is probably a good look, is if Baltimore just comes out and drops a 40 burger on them and says like, hey, remember this guy, the MVP from a couple years ago? Well, we got a new offense and we're back. And I feel like that's a decent chance that it happens. I would almost probably just stay away from this game. But if you're betting it now, you take the 9.5 rather than or money line parlay the Ravens or something like that. I think
this might be one where you look at the first half. I feel like the Ravens last year were great in the first half and then fell apart towards the end. So maybe they come out strong and then I don't know what happens. This one was my favorite game of week 1, Rams at Seahawks. It opened at 5.5. Now it's 6, favoring the Seahawks. This over under 46.5. I love the Seahawks in this spot because I have zero faith in what the Rams are able to do this year. What do you think, RJ?
Yeah, 5.5 in a lot of places still good value. We had my power ratings have it at 9.5. I think there's a ton of movement that can still happen toward the Seahawks. I don't get the line at all. Rams were one of the worst teams in the league down the stretch last year. They have future Hall of Famer Will Brinson's guy, Matt Stafford, back. That should help. But they did more gutting the roster than adding to it this offseason. They look like they're looking toward the future here. Who's going to Stafford going to throw to besides Cooper Kupp? I don't know. How will the offensive line keep Stafford upright? I don't know. He might get hurt again at some point this year. Who makes plays for the Rams defense if Aaron Donald's getting triple teamed, considering they gutted some of that? I don't know. I have Seahawks as 2 points above average, and I think the market hasn't caught up to how strong their roster is. I would not be surprised if this closes at 7 or even 7.5, because I think it should be in that range of Texans Ravens.
Yeah, it's a lot of points.
You love Matthew Stafford.
I just think that Sean McVay is going to figure something out here. I don't think the Rams are just going to stink. I don't think they're going to be like a 11-12 win team or anything. The attrition from you win a Super Bowl and you have a lot of success, team success, and you have a stars and scrubs roster. You're going to lose some of those, some of the lesser known talents who end up hitting free agency and other teams value them and you just can't retain them. And then you got to trade Jalen Ramsey, but they're getting Cooper Kupp back. And I really think people don't understand how hurt Matthew Stafford was last year. I'll take the 6 points here. but I'm gonna tail RJ a little bit too. And if he thinks it's going to get to 7 or more, I'm going to wait and I'll take the Rams catching 7. I think you're just going to see a very determined Sean McVay and a very determined Matthew Stafford, who people sort of treated as like, oh, nice one-hit wonder last year when McVay's only had one losing season. I like the Rams.
He's going to figure. What he is going to figure out? He's going to figure out what network he's going to work for in 2024.
There's nowhere to go.
Sabbatical. He'll figure
They're
something
all
out.
taken.
That's what he's spending the year working out, is figuring that out. So.
My favorite bet in all of football is Matthew Stafford to throw an interception. Sometimes it's heavily juiced, but it hits in pretty much every single game.
But it's a good bet. It's a good bet.
Money. Free money. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. You're watching the Pick Six podcast. We'll be right back.
Europe's most exciting title race continues with world-class clubs, legendary rivals, and unbelievable goals.
Brilliant! What a goal!
The Serie A lives here on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
Welcome back to the Pick Six podcast. I'm Katie Mox here with RJ White and Will Brinson. Today is our NFL Week 1 way too early betting lines show. Make sure you join us all week to keep you up to date with all of the NFL offseason news. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube page. All right, now we have a game where it's take the dog or leave the dog. Which underdogs are you betting on Week 1? We got the Jags at Colts. Jags laying 3.5. Take the dog, leave the dog. RJ White.
A lot of people are going to want to take the dog because it's 3.5 and they see, oh, I get the hook. I want to take that with the field goal. I am leaving it completely. I think this line should be 5. I think Indianapolis, I have them as my 29th ranked team right now in the power ratings to start the season. Quarterback figures to be an issue early unless Anthony Richardson severely exceeds expectations out the gate. I'm not going to rule that out. Athletic as hell, could probably do it, but I might need to be coached up some. And maybe this is a Gardner Minshew game. And if it's a Gardner Minshew game, I certainly want the Jaguars at minus 3.5. So if the Jaguars are as good as the market thinks they are, that Indy assessment for me makes this line too light. But if Richardson builds buzz through training camp and preseason, he's the next coming for them. This line will come down. So you'll be glad you took the Colts at plus 3.5 of that sense. So I can understand both sides of the argument. I just think Jaguars are too good here, and it should be a little bit higher.
I kind of think the Colts win this game, but I agree with you completely. Like, I had the Jaguars as much better than the Colts. It's just sort of like the inverse of what happened with Indy the last couple of, since 2014. They just can't go to Jacksonville and win football games at all for some reason. It does feel like I think there's a case. I mean, I could just see a situation where the Jaguars lose to Indy in Week 1 and then beat the Chiefs, and people are like, what the hell? Football is weird. That being said, yeah, I mean, I think RJ's spot on. If you believe that Gardner Minshew is going to start, then I will change my mind about that game. I think Anthony Richardson provides sort of the undercover, Trojan horse style attack with the Shane Steichen offense, where you don't know what you're going to get from him. They're not going to show you a ton in training camp. They're not going to show you a ton in the preseason. Sort of thinking back to RG3 a little bit, maybe in 2012, excuse me, and then in 2022, Jalen Hurts takes a step. There's just sometimes you just don't you can just sort of cover up what you're going to drop on an offense. And I think we could see that with Richardson. If it's Minshew, the line moves up, and I would love the Jaguars. So I think it's, to RJ's point, you sort of have to kind of track the quarterback battle and plant your flag in one of those spots here.
After this game, Indy goes on the road twice, at Houston, at Baltimore, then 4 of their next 5 games at home, starting with the Rams in Tennessee. I think that's a perfect time to debut Anthony Richardson, get him under center.
All right, moving on. The Titans at Saints. Saints minus 3.5. Take the dog, leave the dog, RJ.
This is one where I'm taking. I think it opened 1.5 and everybody steamed toward the Saints, and I get it, but getting on the other side of 3.5, I think is too much for me. This is still a Ryan Tannehill team. I don't think he's going to get traded, and all indications are he's going to be the starter there. Even if it is Will Levis, I think it's him beating out Ryan Tannehill for the job, and then they figure out what to do with Ryan Tannehill after that, which is a good sign for Levis, and they still have Derrick Henry. And against this defense, the Saints defense, that has issues in the middle. That's why they went and got Brian Brisset in the first round, and I don't know that he's the type of player that's going to necessarily fix things all by himself. I think that you can attack them with Derrick Henry at running back and keep this game close, and too much respect for Mike Vrabel. If he's getting more than 3 points in a game, I'm probably going to want to take the Titans in that game. So I do have the Saints at 1.5 points better than on a neutral field. But if you flip the ratings for these teams and made the Titans 1.5 points better by the end of the season, it wouldn't shock me that much considering the coach. So I think there's value here on the Titans.
I had the Titans winning this game outright. Think it's a good look. That plus 162 on the money line. Under is probably a pretty good look too, with the way that these two teams coach and the way that they play. The Derek Carr hype, I get it. I'm not trying to poo-poo Derek Carr. I just think it's a little bit overblown. And you better believe that Mike Vrabel is hearing everybody talk about how the Titans are toast and how the Titans can't do much. I mean, they've still got, like, they're not a great team. The offensive line has fallen apart. You have major questions at the skill positions in terms of who's going to be catching the football, but they still got Derrick Henry. They still got Ryan Tannehill. They still got Mike Vrabel, and they still have a decent defense. Like, it shouldn't surprise anybody when this team is like just gutting out 16-13 victories or like 13-10 wins in week 5, and all of a sudden they're 4-1, and people are wondering, like, oh, like, what, like, is Tennessee good? Like, what the hell is happening? I would absolutely take the dog in this spot.
Okay, the Patriots are 4.5-point home dogs against the Eagles. And look, Eagles obviously had a great draft, had a pretty good offseason. Patriots did not, but the Patriots will be honoring Tom Brady at this game. So there's a lot of good juju in the building. Take the dog, leave the dog.
Yeah, back to 5 here. I mean, it's been 4.5 at some places, 5 at some places. I was a little surprised that when it was 5, it moved down to 4.5 because I figured everybody would want to be on the Eagles after that draft, and they would be the narrative. And I think I'm probably the high person on the Patriots. I think upgrading from that dynamic duo of Matt Patricia to Bill O'Brien is one of the biggest upgrades you're going to see, similar to what Brian Daboll did in taking over for Joe Judge in New York. And he's going to know how to run an offense here. And I think that he can he'll help make the Patriots offense competitive. Mac Jones did some good things in his first year, very efficient throwing the ball downfield. They were gone last year because they just did not have any idea what they were doing on offense. So I think they can come out, surprise the Eagles a little bit, make this a closer game than people think. My power ratings would put the line at -5. So I think it's a line that makes sense, but like I said, I'm high on the Patriots. I think the value is going to be on New England in week 1, catching 5 points.
Yeah, give me the dog to win the game again. Ooh. Patriots beat the Eagles. I've actually here's a hot take for you, like just pure. It's not even really trolling because I actually have the Patriots within 1. I think the Patriots win as many games as the Eagles do this year. Oh, how about that? How you like them apples? This is a prime sell high, buy low situation. Nobody wants to be on the Patriots. The Patriots win total is 7.5. 7.5 for a Bill Belichick team. I think that they're going to go over. I don't think it's going to be easy. Maybe you see a little something like Tennessee where this defense is really good. You have a Belichick situation where I'm always drinking on the pod. No, I'm not. I should like some water right now. Look, Belichick has a lengthy amount of time to prepare. You have a Eagles team that lost its offensive coordinator, lost its defensive coordinator. You have a ton. Like, people don't understand. I mean, people don't bake that in enough. Like, you think about the Bills last year and how, with Dable leaving and Dorsey in, like, there's some, you can come out of the gates hot, but there's some transition that you have to overcome when you make these big changes. There's some personnel misses. The Patriots are largely the same, except for that massive upgrade from Matt Patricia and Joe Judge to Bill O'Brien. It can't be overstated. And I think the Patriots win this game. And, the Eagles are going to be coming in a little, they're excited for the season, obviously, but their schedule is 32nd in terms of, it's the hardest strength of schedule in the league, as John Breach noted, that versus last year having the easiest. Everybody's going to be on the Eagles here. Give me the Pats to win.
Ooh, I like that take here. Okay, so 2 quarterbacks that know each other very well. Jimmy Garoppolo, a 3.5-point dog versus Russ Wilson in Raiders at Broncos. Russell Wilson obviously coming off of career worst in completion percentage, passing touchdowns, passer ratings, you name it. Jimmy Garoppolo back with his old coach there. How do you see this one going, RJ?
Yeah, I have my power to just have it at 3.5 as it is the correct line. And I saw one sports book operator commenting and saying that they were waffling between 3 and 5 for this game. They landed on 3.5, which tells me there might be a little bit more baked in to go a little bit higher here. Again, talking about coaching upgrade, Sean Payton's just a massive upgrade on the operation based on what they had last year. And it is possible that the Broncos are the team the market thought they were last offseason, where they had the Jets type of helium, and they don't have that this year. The Denver also has a big home field advantage early in the season. I mean, This is weeks 1 and 2. You want to play them. And especially if my ratings say that 3.5 is the right line for any week of the season, a week 8, week 9, I want to be on that 3.5 side if Broncos are at home. So I initially projected the spread would grow when it was on the key number of 3 Thursday night at some places. And it's got the hook now. If it moves back again, if it moves again, it might be back to 3. And then I would look to back Denver. So I'm waiting on this one, hoping to get a 3 at some point.
Yeah, I love Denver too. RJ points out the home field advantage enormous in Mile High or whatever, Invesco or whatever it is now. Early in the season, the Raiders are situated fairly closely from a geographical standpoint, but you just can't adjust to it. It is a legitimate big deal. The Broncos will have been training there, working out their preseason there. It's just a very hard adjustment. And the Sean Payton stuff is huge. Like he has, he is working for this new ownership. He has, like, if Russell Wilson has a great first game against a Raiders defense that, has Max Crosby, was fairly toothless with Chandler Jones, and we don't think necessarily he's going to be great in 2023. And Russ has an awesome first game. People are going to be talking about, oh my God, the Broncos, of course, Russ is a franchise quarterback.
Yes.
He just needed Sean Payton. And it just feels very obvious that's where the narrative's heading. I think Denver rolls in this one.
Ooh, not good news for my Jimmy Garoppolo. I will say, Jaime in the chat says, Will Brinson is officially not allowed on the Eagles train in 2023. And I will say, the one person who's not going to be on, except for me, is Will Brinson.
Yeah.
He's probably never getting on the Eagles.
I was on the Eagles bandwagon before anybody else last year. I was the first one on the bandwagon. I mean, not like Eagles honks and, like Debo, Billy, et cetera, but like legitimately on the Eagles, picked him to make the Super Bowl during the draft last year. And this year, it's just an obvious sell high situation for Philly. And I'm not rooting against them, but I just don't think they're going to be nearly as good.
I just think the listeners are relieved they're not going to have to hear about it every week from you about how great you were for calling the Eagles, rise to power. That's now put in the past. He's officially saying that they're going to lose week 1 to the Patriots. So we can stop saying that.
You want to know who
the Brinson model has spoken.
Who do you think my obnoxious, I'm on them as they got better, and I won't stop talking about a team is going to be for 2023? That could be its own show.
The Jags.
Yeah, it could be anyone. It could be the Broncos we just talked about. I don't think it's going to be the Lions. I don't know. I would say the Patriots, based on what you just said about them beating the Eagles, is an option. So maybe one of those teams, maybe the Ravens with Lamar back. I don't know. You'll have to tell me.
Might be a bird. Might be a bird involved.
Well, the Arizona Cardinals, I should have guessed.
The Atlanta Falcons, actually. Maybe let's do this.
10 wins. That makes sense.
Let's do this as its own show one day during the offseason where we narrow it down and then we reveal it like Bachelorette style.
Yes, I love that. Okay, one last game to look at. The 49ers are laying 3 in Pittsburgh. This total 41.5. To me, this feels like a stay away game until you know who the quarterback is going to be for San Francisco. But would you take the dog? Steelers +3 here, RJ?
I would. My ratings have it 2.5, and that's assuming that the quarterback situation is going to be fine, which we obviously don't know at this point. So I think there's a lot more downside baked in for the Niners on this line. I think the Steelers are on the rise. Kenny Pickett in year 2, he probably is going to make some progress. They were able to address some of their issues in the draft. So I have the 49ers rated as if they'll have whoever their quarterback 1 is for this game, whether it's Brock Purdy or Trey Lance. And even then, I think there's slight value on Pittsburgh. So I want to take Pittsburgh +3. I'm not sure if the market gives me any better. Maybe if we do get positive news from the Niners, it grows and we can get a +4 at some point. But I'm going to probably be on the Steelers either way.
RJ, at what point are you going to reveal your Trey Lance? Brock Purdy's 45-1 to win MVP. What's Trey Lance? I'm trying to find Trey Lance right now because I was doing some best ball drafts on Sunday night on DraftKings. I just had long story. I just dove in them, and I was stunned by how late you can get Trey Lance with your last one of your last 3 or 4 picks of the draft. And I mean, last year he got down to 35-1 to win MVP before the season. It's pretty crazy. I assume it's something like 500-1 at this point because everyone expects, Katie, that
he's going to be moved at some point. Yeah.
Or that Brock Purdy will be the starter. I think Lance is a great buy low opportunity.
Oh, okay.
Depends on where he's playing. Yeah. If he gets traded and Brock Purdy's the guy, then who knows what his situation is going to be. So I wouldn't play him now. The reason I was on him last year was because of the Kyle Shanahan thing, and they invested so much to go get him and trusting in Kyle Shanahan's vision. If he gets traded to some random place and he's, who knows what that offensive coordinator vision is going to be. So I wouldn't play him. The problem with who's going to be that guy, you typically look for a year 2 quarterback, and the quarterbacks last year weren't great. So maybe it's Kenny Pickett. I don't think he feels like an MVP level quarterback. If the Atlanta wins 10 games, maybe it's Desmond Ridder, and that's their super long shot play to take. So we'll see. I think you're probably going to go outside the mold of those type of guys, though.
Katie's, I don't even know what that sound or noise, what that was, but I was like, I think Trey Lance is a good buy low, and you're like, oh, that's so cute.
It is cute because look, Trey Lance
It's like very
might start
dismissive.
well, because I think Brock Purdy is going to be the starter. I think Trey Lance will start a couple games until Brock Purdy is ready. Then Brock Purdy is going to come in. And so I don't think there's any chance of that happening. Although if we want to talk about what would be the most insufferable win you could possibly have, it would be you saying right now Trey Lance is the MVP and that ends up happening. We probably would never hear the end of that.
Well, the interesting thing,
Now look, RJ, by the way, nailed Patrick Mahomes 75-1 to win MVP in 2017.
55,
So
Ooh.
55 there, but yeah.
Yeah, but the interesting thing with the odds now, you're talking about the San Francisco quarterback situation. I think a lot of people think Brock Purdy's the guy based on his what he did at the end of last year.
The injury.
The Trey Lance is 40-1, Brock Purdy's 45-1 to win MVP. So I mean, the odds are putting Purdy behind Lance. If that's the play, then maybe you want to take Purdy at 45-1 if you think that's the guy that we saw last year. I would definitely take him over Lance at this point.
Let's go. Brock Purdy to win MVP. That has my vote and my money. Okay, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And thank you for tuning in. Make sure you join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. for more off-season coverage. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube page. For everyone listening to audio only, do the same. Download, follow, leave a 5-star review. Tell your friends to listen and watch the pod. And we'll see you tomorrow.